Hey there. You're listening to the quiet between the noise, a space where your mind can rest and the weight of the day gently fades away. Here, there's no rush, no pressure, just soft whispers, gentle pauses, and a place for you to simply breathe. So go ahead, get cozy. Let your shoulders relax. Let your thoughts drift like slow-moving clouds. You've done enough, and you deserve to rest. Take a deep breath in and slowly breathe out. This is your time now to unwind, to let go, and to gently drift into sleep. Tonight's story is just about to begin. Time Error, Part 1. Beginning from a fixed point. My name is Elena Wright. I'm one of the leading quantum physicists at Argus 9 Federal Research Facility, an underground center buried deep beneath northern Colorado, a place where sunlight never reaches. And time sometimes doesn't either. On that fateful day, I was assigned as the supervising officer for a time transcendence experiment, a project known as Chrono Shift. We were done with theoretical tests. We were about to send a living subject into the past, not data, not a camera, not a simulated dream, but an actual human being. I knew it had gone too far, but I also knew I was too far in to turn back. September 12th, 2048. The first patient, subject X07, was a volunteer, a former soldier. We had placed biometric sensors all over him. Heart rate, EEG, plasma analytics. Everything was stable. The time machine was housed in Underground Laboratory 3, a sealed room with a single entrance, and one fixed destination. Exactly 5 minutes into the past. Just 5 minutes. No more. We began the countdown. 10, 9, 8, until the lights on the machine burst into a blinding blaze, roaring like a thunderstorm. My eyes couldn't focus on anything within that white-hot glow. Then, silence. Absolute. There was nothing in the chamber anymore. X07 was gone. We erupted in cheers, shaky handshakes, eyes gleaming with the belief that history had changed forever. But I didn't smile. Something felt wrong. I didn't know why, it was just instinct. Exactly 5 minutes later, X07 was supposed to return. We activated every screen, every sensor, and right on cue, something came back. But it wasn't human. It stood in the middle of the chamber, its shape flickering, warped like a million film reels being rewound all at once. Its eyes, if those were eyes, stared straight through each person in the room. A coldness pierced through my spine like a needle of ice. It didn't speak, but I heard something inside my head. You should not have done this. Part 2. What came back was no longer human. I wasn't sure if I was shivering from the cold or from fear. Is that X07? A young engineer asked, his voice cracking like he was about to cry. I didn't answer. None of us dared to. The creature standing there inside the sealed test chamber resembled a human. But it was no longer whole. Its body looked broken in multiple directions, as if time within it no longer flowed in one direction. Its right eye spun endlessly like a malfunctioning clock, while the other half of its face was being pulled outward, stretched by some invisible force. No one dared to step closer. Suddenly, the room's lights began to flicker. A low, static buzz crept through the intercoms. Then a voice, genderless, emotionless, whispered through every corner of the lab. "Don't open it again! Don't let us out!" I screamed. "Shut it down! Lock the system now!" But it was too late. The lights died completely. Someone screamed in the darkness, a raw, choking cry, like they were being strangled. Then came the sound of shattering glass, metal screeching. I slipped, slamming my back against the cold floor, my heart pounding wildly. In the dark, I had nothing but my breath, and a single thought repeating like a broken record. We summoned the wrong entity. When the emergency lights finally flickered back on, the room was in ruins. The chamber's reinforced glass was shattered. 2 members of our team were gone. No blood, no trace, as if they'd never existed at all. I walked toward the machine. At my feet, a thick pool of black, oily fluid shimmered, reeking of scorched metal. On the floor, a message was carved, with fingernails, not ink. The texture told me it was scratched into flesh before it dried. It's not X07 anymore. I looked up at the surveillance monitors. The cameras showed the rest of the facility's corridors, all empty, not a single soul. It was as if Argus 9 had been erased from reality. I tried reaching the high-level security system. No signal, no exit, no orders, no rescue. I knew then that I was completely alone. But I also knew one thing with absolute certainty. It was still here, not in the chamber, but outside, in the long, dark hallways, waiting. Part 3, a call from the future. I knew I had to get out of the main lab. The safety override key was located on the lower level, the data storage vault and mission control center. I ran through the corridor, past flickering lights that looked like they were breathing their last. The nameplates of my colleagues still hung by each door, but they were gone. Only faint smudges remained, like shadows of people stretched too far, then wiped away. When I reached the elevator, the control panel had been destroyed. The doors stood ajar, revealing a dark shaft, deep and hollow like a black hole. I had no choice. I climbed down the maintenance ladder inside the shaft. Halfway down, I heard a whisper rising from the depths below. A woman's voice. My voice. "Don't go down. I did once, and I never came back." I froze, breath caught in my chest. The voice didn't come from the radio. It didn't come from anywhere external. It was inside my head. When I reached the data vault, the motion-triggered lights flicked on, but everything was drenched in a warning red hue. The silence was thick, yet I could feel movement, as if the air itself was retracting, curling inward around me. I made my way to the data terminal and connected to the mainframe. I needed to find the last recorded log, the moment X07 vanished into the machine. If I could reverse the displacement sequence, maybe I could send it back to its rightful point in time and seal the gate forever. My hands trembled as I opened the final file, but the footage didn't just show X07. It showed me, standing inside the temporal chamber, eyes blank, with something growing out of my back. An elongated, writhing thing dragging along the floor like a tentacle. And then, the woman in the video turned her head. She looked straight into the camera, straight at me. "You're repeating my mistake. I am you. I've always been here." I shot to my feet, disconnected the system. My skin was soaked in a cold sweat. Right then, the lights inside the chamber snapped off, and I heard it. Footsteps, heavy, slithering yet sharp like bones scraping metal. Slow, closer, closer. That's when I understood. This thing didn't need to travel through time to find me. It had already assimilated time. It was the twisted, inevitable future version of me. Part 4. The Reflected Aberration. I bolted out of the data room, the door slamming shut behind me as if yanked by an invisible force. The entire hallway was dark. Dim LED strips above flickered like the final gasp of a dying signal. But it wasn't a cry from me. It was from this place itself. The entire research station, I began to understand, had been pulled out of the main timeline. We weren't drifting through time. We were trapped between overlapping temporal layers. As I ran, the walls on either side began to peel away in chunks, revealing fragments of other spaces. I saw myself, but in different versions. In one, I was sitting in the lab, sobbing, hands soaked in blood. In another, I lay still on an autopsy table, my chest split open. In a third, I stood motionless as I ran past, then smiled, cold and unblinking. I screamed, not out of fear, but because I couldn't understand what was real anymore. I reached the safety chamber where the temporal restructuring device had once been activated. The machine was still there, still spinning, still groaning, as if it were in pain. The console displayed a blinking red message: status, temporal interference, duplicate instances detected. I typed the command to display the timeline diagram. What appeared made me want to vomit. It was no longer a timeline. It was a massive spiderweb. Each node was a version of me. Each diagonal strand, a corrupted displacement link from a failed shift. I was no longer a single person. I was an ecosystem. Click. The door behind me creaked open. I turned. Standing there was another me. She was skeletal, eyes sunken, her skin gray like a drowned corpse. Her hair was clumped and matted. Clinging to her spine was a black organism, tentacles rooted deep, pulsating. She tilted her head and smiled. Tired yet? I'm your final iteration. I stumbled back, slipped. She walked forward, each step leaving black scorch marks on the metal floor. You're not the victim. You're the origin. And now, you must be retrieved. As she reached out, I slammed my hand onto the console, activating the reverse time navigation sequence. A blinding light erupted. Screeching tore through the room. A burst of light brighter than the sun. We were both pulled into it. Everything melted away. Matter, sound, thought. And then, I opened my eyes. I was somewhere. A blank white space. Nothing but thick, clinging mist. A voice echoed, nowhere and everywhere. Experiment X07 failed. Subject fragmented. Identity reconstruction unsuccessful. I screamed, I'm still here, I'm still me. But another voice answered, no, you're what's left. Part 5. Fragments of myself. I didn't know how long I had been unconscious. When I opened my eyes, I could no longer feel gravity. My body floated in a space that wasn't completely empty. It felt like the inside of a torn memory. Images floated around me. My mother laughing in the kitchen. Me at 16 studying under a warm yellow lamp. A white room. With me bound to a chair. I reached for each image, but they burst into bubbles, as if all my memories were nothing but simulated data. None of this is real, I whispered, my heart racing. None of it ever was. A sweep of light dragged me toward a spherical chamber. At its center stood another version of me, this time wearing a doctor's coat, holding a monitoring tablet. Her face was blank, expressionless. Don't you get it? She said without looking up. You were never her, you're just copy number 29. I couldn't breathe. Copy? Who? Who am I? She stepped forward and handed me a device, something like an ID card. Test subject X07. Base data, reconstructed from Dr. Elara Quinn's identity status. Unstable function. Observed temporal fragmentation process. I let the card fall. I wasn't Elara. I was a copy, designed to monitor her. Everything spun around me. What I thought was reality turned out to be a warped temporal simulation, a test to observe the limits of cloned cognition. The real Elara had been dead for a long time, and me, I was a lost fragment, caught in overlapping temporal strata, unable to return, unable to die, unable to be. But then, something shifted. The light dimmed, the space cracked like shattering glass. A presence emerged through the fractured wall of time. It had no clear shape, just a vortex of liquid metal and pulsating light. It spoke. The temporal continuum has fractured. All clones are corrupted. Reset the loop, or erase all instances. I didn't know what it was. A master AI, an interdimensional consciousness? Or me, from another time layer? I don't want to be erased, I said. I want to choose, even if I'm just a copy. I'm still alive. The entity was silent. Then, it opened a rift of light, a choice. Enter it and return to the origin point, or stay and dissolve with the other broken echoes. I stared into the rift. I had no idea what waited on the other side. It could be death. It could be another loop. But I stepped through. Because this time, I chose Part 6. A reality that never was. I woke with a dull ache at the back of my head. A familiar feeling I couldn't quite name. Everything was too quiet. No hum of machines, no stream of data flowing into my mind. Just the sound of my own ragged breathing in a cold, sterile hospital room. But something was wrong, very wrong. I was wearing a patient's gown. A thick surgical stitch ran from my neck down to my collarbone. I tried to stand, but dizziness hit me like a wave, as if my memories had just been wiped clean. I stumbled to the mirror at the far end of the room and froze. The girl staring back wasn't me. She had my face, but her eyes were calm, empty, as if she had never known fear, never been tested, never been a clone. You don't remember anything, do you? A voice spoke behind me. I turned, and there stood Ilara Quinn, but not me, not a copy. The real Ilara, flesh and blood. Welcome to the origin reality, she said. I couldn't understand. I thought, you were dead. I thought you were just a memory inside me. Ilara smiled, cold and detached. I was never dead. I was never a memory. You are the final experiment. The clone sent back in time to change my original decision. I stepped back. What? We tried to fix temporal deviation by eliminating all corrupted copies. But you chose to come back. You chose to live. And that created a new branch. That deviation is the future you just opened. I looked around. Everything shimmered slightly, like a world not fully rendered. And then I understood. I had never escaped the layers of time. I had only chosen a new branch, one where Ilara was still alive. And I, the clone, had been born again as an independent entity. What do you want from me? I asked, my throat dry. I want to see what you'll do when you think you're real. Ilara stepped closer. I want to know if a clone, when given freedom, will self-destruct or survive. A warning tone blared. The ceiling cracked. Streams of data poured down like bleeding circuits. A glowing timer flashed in front of me. Time remaining, 04-12-07. What is this? I shouted. What am I supposed to do? Ilara didn't answer. She began to dissolve, her body breaking apart into glowing strands of DNA, then vanished completely. I collapsed. The room folded in on itself. Walls crumbled away, revealing a labyrinth, dark and endless, where shadows that looked just like me wandered aimlessly. I wasn't the only copy, and none of us knew who the original really was anymore. Part 7, The Nameless Ones. I stepped into the maze on trembling legs, the biological clock in my head still ticking down every second. 4 hours, 11 minutes, 48 seconds. With each step I saw another familiar face, a girl who looked just like me, a boy with my same eyes, a child with the same tiny mole near the neck. We were fragments, replicated, spliced, reassembled beings. One of them approached me, her face pale, eyes shimmering with something close to emotion. You're 3.07, aren't you? She asked. I stepped back, wary. I don't know what I am anymore. She smiled gently. None of us do, but I remember the code of every one of us, because I was the first. 1.00. I went numb. Then you're the first clone of Ilara. No glitches, no emotions. Until I began to remember. 1.00 led me through a circular hallway, its flickering lights pulsing like the veins of a colossal living body. On both walls, hundreds of suspended glass pods floated in space, each containing another Ilara, sleeping, dead, or never awakened. These are the failures. But me, and now you, were the exceptions. Exceptions to what? I asked. 1.00 stared directly into my eyes. We're not under control. We choose for ourselves. Images returned to me, blurry but real. The first lab, Ilara's memories flooding into me. The fear of being erased the moment I resisted. I asked her, why is there a countdown in my mind? Why did Ilara send me back to the origin layer? 1.00 lowered her gaze. Because you're the key, the first clone capable of restructuring the entire timeline. You can erase all faulty layers, or destroy the origin reality itself. I froze. I'm a weapon. You're the final question in Ilara's equation. A door slid open behind her. Beyond it, a massive machine loomed, its core glowing like a pulsating heart. Engraved on the surface, intersection, device version 0.0.0. Do you want to keep living? $1 asked. Or do you want to end all fractured timelines and return to a single unified reality? I remained silent. I wasn't sure if I was still human, but I knew, clone or not, I was standing at the edge of the impossible, and I would choose. Part 8. The Open End. I stood before the machine, the intersection device, the heart of the entire cloning and time control system. The wires twisted like veins, flickering lights pulsing to the rhythm of something that might, just might, be me. 1.00 whispered into my ear. When you touch it, all the fractured layers will either collapse or merge. There's no going back. You will be the new origin, or nothing at all. I could no longer feel my heartbeat. It felt as if it were being ripped from my chest and suspended in the void. I asked her, "And you? Don't you want to do this yourself?" 1.00 smiled faintly, but in her eyes was a world already dead. I chose once, and I failed. Now it's your turn. I reached out and touched the core. The world around me shattered like glass. Layer 1, Layer 3.07, Layer 0.0.0. The layer I once thought was real. The layer I once died in. The layer where I was a doctor. The layer where I was nothing but a number. The layer where I killed myself to survive. All of them spiraled together like a vortex of light and memory. The copies of Ilara, laughing, crying, screaming, all of them existed within me. And then I opened my eyes. A white light flooded the station, smooth and soft, like a long breath after a deep sleep. I was lying in a containment pod, just like the other copies before me. But this time, I couldn't hear the ticking of the clock. No code numbers, no directives, no other clones. Only me. "What is your name?" a voice rang out through the intercom. I didn't answer immediately. I was waiting to see if any memory would return. No more templates, no more repetition. I whispered, "I'm not sure, but I think I'm Ilara." The door slid open. A new hallway, empty, and I walked forward for the first time without a code number or fear.